Alright, so I'm going to start by reading some spoken word that kind of inspired me to talk about this topic. And the spoken word is called "We Will Not Let an Exam Result Decide Our Fate" by Silly Breaks. Right now, there is a kid finishing parents' evening in a heated discussion with his mother, saying, why does he have to study subjects he will never use in his life? She will look at him blank-eyed, stifle a sigh, think for a second, and then lie. She will say something along the lines of, you know, to get a good job, you need a good degree, and these subjects will help you get a good degree. We never had this opportunity when I was younger. And he will reply, but you were young a long time ago, weren't you, Mom? And she won't respond, although what he implies makes perfect sense, that society's needs would have changed since she was 16. But she will ignore him, grip his hand more sternly, and drag him to the car. What she doesn't know is she didn't ignore him just to shut him up. She didn't lie because they were just returning from parents' evening and an argument in the hallway would have looked bad on her resume. She will lie simply because she does not know any better herself. She won't lie because she had just spent the last 1 hour convincing a stern-faced teacher that she would ensure her child studies more at home. Although her whole adult life, she has never used or applied Pythagoras' theorem, Pythic fallacy, and still does not know the value of x. She will rely on society to tell her child, who has one of the sharpest minds in the school, he is hyperactive, unfocused, easily distracted, wayward. Students, how many equations, subjects, and dates did you memorize just before an exam to never use again? How many A grades did you get which were never asked for when applying for a job? How many times did you remember something 5 minutes just after the teacher said stop writing? Once to receive the results 1 month later, realize that you were 1 mark short of the top grade. Does that mean remembering 5 minutes earlier would have made you qualified for a particular job? Well, on an application form it would have. We all have different abilities, thought process, experiences, and genes, so why is a class of individuals tested by the same means? So that means Sherelle thinks she's dumb because she couldn't do a couple of sums, and if the issue is not addressed properly, it then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then every school has the audacity to have a policy on equality. The irony. Exams are society's methods of telling you what you are worth, but you can't let society tell you who you are. Because this is the same society that tells you that abortion is wrong, but then looks down on teenage parents. The same society that sells products to promote natural hair, looks, smooth complexion, with a model on the box half photoshopped, and half has fake lashes and hair extensions, with pastors that preach peace with pastors that preach charity but own private jets, moms that preach against greed but are all fat, parents that say they want educated kids but constantly marvel on how rich Richard Branson is, governments that preach peace but endorse wars, that say they believe so much on importance of higher education and further learning, then why increase tuition fees every single year? I believe Miss Jefferson when she took me into the office and said that my exam results would be imperative to my success, because we were always taught to follow what Miss Jefferson led. Then I took Jefferson out of the equation and learned to think for myself, and then I realized we were always taught what Miss led. The irony. Test us with tests, but the finals are never final, because they never prepare us for the biggest test, which is survival. And what I suggest is fairly outlandish, so I don't expect everyone to understand this, except for the kid that knows what it feels like to be no more worth than that D or that A that he gets on results day. And the ones whose best stories were never good enough for your English teacher, because apparently you missed out key literal techniques, did not follow the class plan. The language was too informal for him to understand, but then he'd reference Hamlet and Macbeth, and you'd fight the urge to express your contempt by partially clenching your fist with only one medius middle finger protruding in the middle of your hand, and asking if he was aware that Shakespeare was the innovator of slang, or that the kid in the back of class who thinks, why am I studying something that doesn't fuel my drive? but then confronted with a math problem and his eyes come alive. So this one's for my generation, the ones who found what they were looking for on Google, the ones who followed their dreams on Twitter, pictured their future on Instagram, accepted their destiny on Facebook. This one's for my failures and my dropouts, for my unemployed graduates, my shop assistants, cleaners, and cashiers with bigger dreams, my self-employed entrepreneurs, my world changers, and my dream chasers, because the purpose of why I hate school but love education was not to initiate a worldwide debate, but whether to let them know 72, 88, 44, or 68. We will not let exam results decide our fate. Now, I think this passage explains a lot about how we are judged in school. When we all have different means and what we all want to do when we leave school. I don't think it's right that some of us have to do studies when it has nothing to do with what we want to do outside of high school. But it's going to affect us anyways, because when you take these classes and you ended up getting a bad grade in a class that you're never going to use after you leave it, it takes away your opportunities. Last Wednesday in class, when we were picking days to do our TED Talks, we went by grades. We went from the top grades to the bottom grades. And those who were on top were to pick first on where they chose. Those ones who were on bottom were picked last. So when we got from the top all the way to the bottom, I noticed that I was in the bottom two, and I was to go first on what we were doing. So does that mean me going last, or me being able to pick last, won't influence or affect what I say here today on all of you? Most high school students stress over every class they take, but then don't remember half of the things they learned right after they take the test or the exam that they needed to know the information for. I find it a little unfair that we have to take classes like Algebra 2 to learn theorems and functions that we won't ever most likely use again in our line of work. But when you take a course, business math, that you automatically get not accepted into a college, when business math only teaches you to do your taxes, buy your car, buy your house, and everything that you're going to need when you leave high school. We all have different motives and aims, so why determine our success all on one test? Maybe U.S. history isn't my subject, but when I applied for my first job at Mike's Car Wash, I don't remember being asked anything about JFK. Teachers always say students who don't go to a good college won't go far in life, and they are crazy if they think they will. Last time I checked, some of the smartest minds and richest people didn't go to a higher learning institution. I look at those teachers and I say they may be crazy, but they have visions and intuitions, persistence and traditions, decisions and inhibitions, dictated by intermissions just waiting to be commissioned. But don't call them crazy because I've never seen anyone win a war with their gun on safety. So students, school isn't evil and there is stuff to gain, but just understand your motives and reassess your aim. In order to know what you want to do with your life, you're going to have to find yourself, but that's a question that I always find myself asking. How do I find myself? 3 years ago, before one of my closest friends had passed away, I would often ask him if he would know a way that I could find myself. And he would look at me and say, "You may not have found yourself, but a self is not something that you find, it's something that you create."